And today we are on chapter 7 of our textbook, which is entitled Listening Actively. So we're developing more skills that we're not used to incorporating in our listening. We really were not taught how to listen. We were taught how to speak. We were taught how to read, how to write, and we sort of figured along the way listening is through osmosis, but it is not. Some aspects of listening we have gravitated toward, but we've not really identified some of the behaviors that we have been using over the years that are considered bad habits. Like, why do we tune out? Why do we ask somebody to say their name again when they just said it? So we are not too aware of our bad listening habits. We want to promote better listening behavior. So we're going to take a look at good listening skills and how important listening is as an active component in interpersonal communication. So first I'm going to share with you your PowerPoints, and I may add more information to the PowerPoints as we go through the understanding of our listening. Remember, we are 100% listeners, right? That initial model of speaker listener, because we're not leaving our ears at home. So here's the definition of listening. And again, we're putting it under the microscope so that you can see that what is so involved in listening, receiving messages, attending, and we're going to go through all of these specifically, being in the moment, if you wanted to give it a now sort of expression, and understanding the entire complexity of what is being said, as well as the details. Sometimes we may remember the details and not understand the concept, and then the ability to respond effectively, and then retaining information for later use. And we know that sometimes that doesn't work out so well. It's called the midterm. You have to remember something 7 weeks later. So I am going to implement some other material here in this chapter so that you can have it at your fingertips and ready to use. But first, let's go over attending, which is devoting attention to the information you receive. So, let's just use the analogy of listening compared to reading. Sometimes you have your book and you're supposed to read chapter 7. So you look at chapter 7 and you start reading the first sentence, and then you're like, I'm hungry. Then you go and eat, you come back, trying to read the first sentence again. You're like, this room is dirty. I haven't cleaned it in 20 years, but now's the day. So sometimes the more we say, I have to focus, I have to focus, I have to focus, we get out of focus. So the word salience is a factor in determining the extent of attending. How salient are you in devoting yourself to that particular listening moment? Sometimes you may need to attend a lecture, attend a class lecture, and you may feel like it's unimportant to you, so therefore to be have a low salience. We want you to create a higher importance for the times that you are listening. Sometimes the reason why you become disconnected with the course is, I need to pass it. But a course may be 15 weeks, this one's only 5, and it's a little bit too far away. So you really have to look at the here and the now, and listening for the moment, and your salience for the moment is very important. Sometimes we need to break down that moment and say, in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to make sure I understand what is being said by paraphrasing. So these are different techniques that are going to keep us listening actively in the moment. We do need to learn how to limit our multitasking. We think we're fabulous at it. We may be doing 6 things at once, but we're not doing them correctly all at once. We're just getting the job done. But they're not 100%. And I don't understand why you would not want to be a 100% comprehensive listener. Elevating your attention improves it. So what we're saying is we want to have you become aware that in an interpersonal situation, you need to be 100% listener, that your field of experience, your knowledge, your feelings, your attitudes and beliefs are all there at that moment, creating a skill for the other person to be also attentive for the other person, because communication mirrors itself. So if you're multitasking, looking at your screen while they're talking, even though you think you're doing the other person justice, you're not. So an important phrase is called mental bracketing, systematically putting aside irrelevant thoughts. Now think about what we're going to eat tonight later. I'll think about my menu later. I'll think about studying for my physics test later. I need to be in the moment. And it's a little bit different, because even when I was at the fireworks last year, whatever it was that I was at the fireworks, I'm in there for the moment. I'm enjoying the fireworks, and yet the person in front of me is filming it. Like, why are you filming and seeing fireworks on something this little when it's the grand universe? So on that note, we tend to save things for later, but later it's not as important. Or being in the here and now for interpersonal communication is important. The there and the then can wait, the here and the now cannot. So next on your list was understanding, interpreting meaning. New information is housed in short-term memory compared to long-term memory. So when you do understand something in a class, we do retain it because of muscle memory. Do I need to know it to get it? You know, is that on the test? Do I need to know that? And that's your short-term memory, whereas your long-term memory is going to see the usefulness as it's carried through. So if I'm just studying dates that happened in World War II, and I'm not seeing the entire map of what was going on during that time period, to north and south or whatever, if I'm not seeing the map, you're not going to create a long-term memory. It's just going to be spouts of Snapple moments. Responding. So responding happens in conveying your attention, understanding after someone shares. So we're used to feedback as a word, which means giving while others talk. So you can be sharing, identifying what the person is saying. You can be empathic to what the person is saying. You can give suggestions to help. These are all different forms of feedback. However, back channel cues signal you've paid attention to and understand specifics. So usually what we're commonly use is back channel cue of the head nod. So the head nod usually tells you that I'm finished and you can start talking. Other than the head nod move, we can maybe have a hand that says something like, you know, what do you think? But that's called back channel cues. Paraphrasing is summarizing others' comments after they've been talking. So, you know, do I clearly understand when you're saying blah, blah, blah? Did I understand it correctly when you said blah, blah, blah? So it's not like you're putting words in their mouth, but you want to know if you really understood it the way it was supposed to be meant. Just yesterday, I said something was huge or someone was huge, and the person in the room said, they're not fat. I said, I didn't say fat. I said huge. Huge refers to like muscle building, huge, you know, large, you know, jackets, but not, I didn't say fat. So, but that person heard fat. So I'm glad that person spoke up. And I said, no, broad shoulders. That's definitely more specific. And that doesn't lead into any other vague interpretation of what I've been saying. Recalling, remembering information. Mnemonics is a word that we use to give you a way to remember. Like I remember in grammar school, every good boy does fine was that the notes in the music scale, or I believe there was how you remembered the planets in a sequence of being closer to the sun. So we use mnemonic devices. These are our memory aid. So we have mnemonic devices like that, as well as when you're highlighting, when you're reading, whether digitally or hard copy. You just want to highlight key terms or a word that describes that key term. But what generally happens is you highlight the whole paragraph and nothing is standing out except for a coloring book. So a mnemonic device is equal to what we call memory jog. What is going to allow you to remember something, either an acronym or a sentence. And again, visually, when you're using something from a book, you want to use simple and shorter highlights rather than the whole sentence. So when we identify listening further, we see that listening has a function. So as a listener, I have to comprehend the message. I have to discern the message, understand what it said. I have to analyze it. Did I understand it correctly? I have to appreciate what has been said to what I understood it to be said. And I listen to support the spoken word. So the essential part of active listening is adapting and listening purposes to changing demands of interpersonal communication. So we have this term called mediated listening, which is receiving, attending to understand, responding to, recalling sounds and images through media channels. So we sometimes study with music, okay, mediated listening. So you're using something to enhance your memory technique. Now, some of you say, oh, I can't study with music on. Some of you say I can study with only instrumental. So if you're using or adapting your listening to ways that are going to enhance your listening to help you recall, we've seen studies on that as well. So understanding listening styles. So it says here that both culture and gender affect listening styles. So we know when we study culture, there are certain cultures that are a little bit more attentive to creating better listening skill habits. And here we have to teach you. In our culture, in our New York State school system, we should incorporate more activity involving listening rather than just test you on the test. For example, when you learn another language and you quickly repeat what they said. You know, in Spanish, they may say, ¿Dónde está? And you say, ¿Dónde está? Estoy bien. Estoy bien. Those are immediate recalling skills, and that's effective. We need to know how to listen and obtain the information on the spot. How often have you been introduced to a few people and then 3 seconds later, oh, what was your name again? So you're not in the here and now. And that could be something that we can advance by learning more listening or having more listening training skills at an early age.